Hey guys, Mustached Tom here to review the movie Levitucus. Now, I didn't see any trailers for this movie, it is just happens to be something that I came across. And, well, I am here to review this movie as objectively as possible. But it is an interesting one in that, you know, for those who are not familiar, Leviticus is, from my understanding, religious scripture, and one of the, passages is used by religious people to be homophobic, but, I prescribe that notion to say that God himself there be homophobic tendencies. And this movie particularly leans in on that with a horror aspect and bringing back, or if it ever really truly left, the bury your gays trope. But I digress. Let's get into the plot of the movie. Actually, but before then, the last thing I will say is I don't know when this movie takes place in universe. The sort of rustic nature of the atmosphere definitely seems to illustrate loosely that this might be taking place in the earlier 2000s era. I could be wrong. It's hard to say. But with that, I digress. So the movie begins with us following this young woman who is lured into the restroom in the pool area where seemingly pleasure becomes pain, and she is presumably killed. Confirmed so later on. But we can cut to this barn location where these two lads, the blonde guy you see the back of the poster, named Ryan, and Niam, I believe his name is, the guy in the front with the black hair. And they're sort of toying around in this sort of sequestered location. And through some tussling and all that, it leads to an abrupt romance, or abrupt kiss at the very nature of things sort of leading them into this. But shortly after, they break it off and leave. And of course, we can't have this type of movie without church being involved. In fact, both characters attend a church. And Niam talks with his mom briefly about where he had been, but not necessarily, obviously, what he was doing. And after the fact, he hangs with him again, after the church segment, while smoking, and their bond seems to be in the same place that it was where they left off, once again kissing and making out and all that. And right back to church. So we see that after that, Ryan hooks up when he's sort of off on his own. He hooks up with some other guy named Hunter, This upsets Niam to the point of him telling, I believe it's Hunter's parents that he tells, or Ryan's, I forget which one, but he tells one of the sets of parents, point being. And when this is told to them, they bring both of them back to the church to have them both prayed for. Prayer conversion therapy is the name of the game. So, again, I can't help but with this notion of how the church works. Again, I'm assuming this must take place in the earlier 2000s, and it also must take place in a more rustic area. There aren't a lot of, it's not a big city location. So somewhere in the middle of the map. And likely the parents are all of the conservative leaning. And I mean that both, I mean more so that in the religious context, more so than anything. And they do both indeed, Hunter and Ryan, get punished by this prayer. It seemed there's a little minor bit of mysticism in this movie where the prayer actually gets to them. And so, after the fact, Ryan seems to be talking to himself, as if he's talking directly to whoever he's seeing, as we'll come to learn later on. But we're currently seeing this through Niam's perspective, is sort of following and trying to figure out what's going on here. And indeed, Ryan ends up being attacked later on in this booth, this photo booth in the skating rink. Later on, Niam follows Hunter to see that he has a very similar attack or possession. Unfortunate for Hunter that Niam is unable to get to him, as this leads to, as I mentioned, the bury your gaze trope. Hunter is killed in the process of this attack by this invisible force. Niam tries to tell the police. Obviously, they don't believe him. In a moment of weakness, when the police don't believe him, he opens up about his own experience with Ryan. So the detective tells the mom the obvious thing that happened between the two. So the mother called in some reinforcements to have this moment affect him as well. This lighter is used as the sort of ultimate conversion therapy, as it were. And when Niam sees Ryan again, it ends up being this monster, this invisible monster that we have been seeing, or not seeing in this case, but now we are seeing it through Niam's perspective, and now that he's been infected, he is seeing the one who he has the urge to be with, leading into an attack on him. They talk to a girl who happens to know the character from the introduction of the movie, the one that was attacked in the pool, who talks about this deliverance healer. After they confront the other girl, the one that was attacked, via going to the hospital, she says that ideally, that it would be better to not see the person that you are, that is following you. Sort of the ultimate break of the conversion therapy, as it were. The monstrous, it's given monstrous form in this movie. That it worked in this instance. Well, on the bus, the two, Liam and Ryan here, get their most intimate moment on the bus, reaching the actual engagement of close sexual encounter. However, unfortunately, when the two are separated for only mere moments, Ryan is attacked again in the school bathroom. Liam sees this and tells them that they need to separate at this point in time. Ryan, fearful that his experiences will lead the entity becoming something else, says he would actually rather it be Liam, so perhaps a level of intelligence, and perhaps pushing against this idea that you need to, if you're attracted to the person of the same sex, that you need to be pulled away because of this heavy push, as it were. They get pulled into the small gang via the other girl that they approached, and all the information that Liam has been hiding about discovering Ryan and Hunter comes to light for Ryan and his perspective finally. This pisses Ryan off, and he kind of fucks off for the majority of the rest of the portion of the movie. The real Ryan, anyway. But Liam can't stop. He gets attacked in his dream, sees Ryan trying to come to him, and this entity seems to have some sort of teleporting ability. Its range is probably not that far, and it tries to follow home. Ryan attacks when close, and as fire was the thing that the lighter causes the demon to come, it also seems to be the very same thing that pulls it away. So Liam is able to run off. He ends up in this convenience store where he begs somebody to stick with him. Anybody, but that doesn't seem to work all that well. And thus this entity attacks again as Ryan. He uses fire once more to trap it in the warehouse. When he rejoins his mom, he tells him that, this is where we meet. He kind of opens up to his mom about the situations that have occurred up to this point. And the mom updates him, and she says that she knew that this would happen. That in meeting this deliverance healer would cause this entity to pull them apart. This conversion therapy, idea is pushing them apart, and even went as far as to kill one of them, the previous Hunter. It deeply attacked the two or at least one of the ladies in the situation. she tells him that this process cannot be undone. And that it was used as this way to get him to be so fearful of being with Ryan that he would, just stay away from the real Ryan anyway. And thus, he eventually runs from his mom, seeing how that ended up being the case, goes towards the bus, where he actually sees the real Ryan again. And while I suppose, a more simplistic ending to it, the two end up on the bus and just leave, presumably, the town. So, the ending isn't as strong as I would like it to be, though I get what the movie is going for still. So yeah, that is Leviticus. Obviously, the point of that being is that, once they run away from everyone who's trying to tear them apart, presumably this entity must have some sort of range within that community or area, and that by going on the bus and leaving, that homophobia, which is what this entity could very well represent, for obvious reasons, can no longer get to them. And so the two can be happy elsewhere. And that is Leviticus. So yeah, I think this movie is rather straightforward. I do think that the movie could have used with a little bit more in the beginning portions, telling us a little bit more about who Ryan is and Liam are as characters. Horror in this day and age does have this tendency and issue where it struggles to write characters. I mean, seriously, all I know about the characters is that they are both gay. And approximately, I can only assume that Niam, based on just us mainly following him, is that he's a bit more, or at least between the two of them, the more shy and timid one. But that's really about it. So I do think that the movie could have used a little bit more fluff to build up the beginning, build up character, build the basic roadblock. What that will do for writers who are watching these reviews is help build the connection once they do hook up in that first scene, where in the warehouse, and it makes every moment following stronger, objectively so. And I think there is something to be said about the ending as well. I think once you get past the base of the what I said about the beginning, I think the rest of the movie is fairly strong for what it's trying to portray here. It definitely feels like a consistent attack once this process starts. Once conversion therapy or, homophobia starts. Whatever you want to hook on to what this entity represents. Once it starts, it seems relentless, and it seems like it doesn't stop. Even in your dreams, it, haunts your nightmares. It can mess with you because it knows, the entity knows, right? It would always pick the person that you have that attraction to, of the same sex, obviously. And so, yeah, it will never stop. And I think, again, I do think that leads into a certain level of credence of this being an earlier 2000 movie, because I think that was the era of the beginning of what I would call the shift of direct homophobia into subtle homophobia, which is, on top of the racism and the lovely other stuff that we have to deal with in 2026 in real life, it doesn't seem like that is attached to this. So this definitely feels like it's a early 2000 movie in terms of era of when this takes place. And because it definitely reflects the ending, where the only solution appears to be just leave, get out of there. There's no point in trying to persuade, Ryan or Liam trying to talk to his mom at the very tail end and getting that response. Told him everything he needed to know, that, that she was very much in this belief, very much knowing that this could very well work, as it were. And through that, just leaving creates that opening, and the entity, we see it one last time, like at the edge, presumably, of where the town is. I'm guessing is what the final shot, when we see Liam looking outside and seeing that other version of Ryan outside when they're on the final boss. I'm assuming again that positioning is meant to be very direct. So yeah, I think this movie is fine. Again, I do still, within the context of it being a horror movie, and me as a writer, are still looking to see for these things that are plentiful in, again, character work, building off of elements that we can attach to these characters rather than just the most of basic things. But I digress. I still think it's a fine movie for what it's doing. So I think that's a 6 out of 10, almost a 7 out of 10. Again, definitely could have used a little bit more work on the character work at the beginning. I do think that the ending fits for what this movie is going for if the time period is correct. But everything else is fine. And with that is my review for Levitucus. And if you ended up enjoying this review, then please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Also make sure to check out those links in the description. Want to head to my petition about smaller YouTubers, click to my PayPal. You can help support me and my channel directly, and there to my Discord server. You can join Club. She'll do that cool stuff for free. And until next time, everyone, bye-bye.